we'll get the wind. Welcome everyone, good afternoon. I'm Congresswoman Susan DelBene. I want to thank everyone for joining us here. Also, all the folks online for being with us on this beautiful day in Skagit County. I'm excited to be joined by so many elected leaders here, local leaders, as well as transportation officials, and my colleague, Congressman Rick Larsen, who is a leader on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee for us, fighting for our state and across the country for strong infrastructure legislation. One end of this bridge, this end is the 1st Congressional District. That end is the 2nd Congressional District. This is the second event that Congressman Larsen and I have done on a bridge that connects our district. We were also down at US 2 and the trestle, and highlighting how important it is that we have strong investments there. So I guess this is a common theme for us right now. But it really talks about the importance of our infrastructure, but in particular how our bridges are connectors of our community. And that's definitely true of this bridge. It's one of the strong examples that I can think of. And it also has highlighted the consequences of what happens if our infrastructure is damaged or if we don't make strong investments. I was a brand new member of Congress back in 2013 when the bridge collapsed, cutting off I-5, choking travel, and having an incredible impact on this region. In the aftermath of the bridge collapse, Washington State Trooper Sean M. O'Connell Jr. was killed while on traffic duty in the days following the collapse, and the bridge now carries his name and serves as a memory for him and the incredible work that he has done serving our community. Bridges connect us to jobs, to schools, they move commerce, they link our communities. And in 2020, the average daily traffic on this bridge was 63,000 vehicles. Pre-pandemic, it was 78,000 vehicles. So a large amount of traffic, a huge connector. These structures, as you'll hear, need ongoing maintenance and upkeep, and decades of underinvestment in bridges have left many across our state in bad shape. In Washington, there are 416 bridges in poor condition across the state. So that's why passing the historic bipartisan infrastructure law last year was so important for the country, but definitely for Washingtonians. Over the next 5 years, the law will invest at least $605 million in bridges across Washington state. And for the current fiscal year, Washington will receive at least $121 million. This funding is to help us repair, replace, rehabilitate, and construct bridges throughout our communities. And I say at least because the law contains a separate program designed to support larger bridges through a competitive grant process. And details on that program will be announced in the near future. The infrastructure law is the single largest dedicated bridge investment since the construction of the interstate highway system. This truly is historic. In addition, our communities can also apply for funding from other competitive grant programs in the infrastructure law, like the RAISE grant program. This funding will help us build the infrastructure to carry us through the next 50 years and beyond. And I remind folks, we're building the infrastructure for the next 50 years. This also means good paying union jobs throughout our region. The state legislature will decide how the funding from the infrastructure law will be allocated. The Washington State Department of Transportation, folks here with us today, has identified the ongoing maintenance of this bridge and the I-90 Upper Snoqualmie River Bridge as prime candidates for funding. This bridge is more than just steel and concrete to this community. It's an important connection. And that's why Congressman Larsen and I have fought so hard to pass this legislation. And it's also a good example of what happens when governance works and we deliver for our communities. So we have more to do in Congress, but I'm so glad to be here today with the community to highlight how this law can help Skagit County and our state. And now I want to I really want to highlight what a leader Congressman Larsen has been. He's a long-serving member of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and played a critical role in getting this law through. It's my honor to introduce my neighbor across the bridge, Congressman Larsen.
Well, thanks, Susan, for the introduction, and thanks for inviting me to your district. I usually just drive right through Mount Vernon. Nothing against you, Mayor, but in order to get to Burlington. But thanks for your leadership, Susan, and on this issue, on issues of trade, on the response that your office has had in helping communities in Upriver and in Whatcom County for flood recovery as well. Success has many parents, and this bipartisan infrastructure law has many parents, including great local support from Mayors Jill Boudreau and Steve Sexton of Mount Vernon and Burlington, respectively. Their advocacy was invaluable to show the local support for an important piece of legislation. And I want to thank Amy Scarton as well from DOT, who I'll introduce in a moment. But like Susan said, Washington State DOT has been a critical partner in identifying this bridge and bridges across the state as prime candidates for federal funding. All of us, I hope, do remember May 23rd, 2013, when the news broke of the bridge's collapse. And the fact that no one died in the collapse was a blessing, but sadly, 8 days later, Washington State Patrol Trooper Sean O'Connell Jr. was killed in a collision while working heavy traffic control due to the collapse, leaving behind his wife and 2 children. And the bridge's collapse and Trooper O'Connell's death are reminders of the safety and economic consequences of failing to replace deficient bridges and the impacts that failures can have on the broader transportation network and on lives. So while the bridge was closed, the traffic was redirected to a lot of off-system, what we call off-system county bridges and rural roads, such as Best Road through Fur Island. And those bridges and roads were not prepared to handle the weight and volume of cars and trucks during the freeway closure. That is why long-term investment in bridges, roads, highways are included in the infrastructure law and are critical to Skagit County and the nearby communities within the county like Mount Vernon and Burlington. You can't have a big league economy with little league infrastructure. And the state has identified more than 6,500 bridges in need of repair and rehabilitation, including this one. And rededicated in 2014, the Trooper Sean O'Connell Jr. Memorial Bridge does not just connect Mount Vernon and Burlington, it connects the entire West Coast. It carries millions of dollars worth of trade between Canada and the U.S. each year. And thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, Washington will receive exactly $605.1 million over the next 5 years, that's a minimum, to invest in critical bridge repair, rehabilitation, and construction. This bold, long-term investment, the single largest dedicated bridge investment since the construction of the interstate highway system, will create well-paying jobs. A reliable bridge enables businesses to get more goods to market, drives economic recovery, and will keep our economy moving. Most importantly, it ensures tens of thousands of people can continue to safely move north and south across the Skagit River. So as Susan said, the legislature will decide now how the funding from the law will be allocated across the state. So I will continue to work with Susan, with the state DOT, with our local mayors, with our local legislators, and importantly with the taxpayers who are paying for these long overdue improvements to ensure every dollar is spent effectively and efficiently over the coming months and years. And I do want to note, this is my second bridge event in the last couple of weeks. To give you an idea of what happens when you invest wisely, I was at the in the city of Everett at the Merrill and Ring Creek Bridge that was built in 1931, and it has had no major repairs to it except for some guardrails, because in 1931 they just had concrete guardrails which could stop a Model A or a Model T, but can't stop a lot of the cars and trucks now. And I would say we got our money's worth out of that bridge, but it is time to replace that bridge as well. So the point is, when you invest wisely, you get your money's worth out of infrastructure. And investing wisely in this bridge and other bridges in the county, we will get our money's worth out of infrastructure investments. So with that, I want to introduce Washington State Department of Transportation Deputy Secretary Amy Scarton. Amy?
Thank you, Congressman Larsen, and thank you, Congresswoman DelBene, for having us here today. Again, my name is Amy Scarton. I am the Deputy Secretary of the Washington State Department of Transportation, and WashDOT is very excited to be here today. We're excited for the Infrastructure Investment in Jobs Act that both Congressman Larsen and Congresswoman DelBene worked hard to pass and that President Biden signed. And we're here today to talk about the importance of this investment in our state. I'm honored to be here with our important public partners, our mayors, our city council and county council folks, their staff, who I know are all pulling hard to make sure that these investments work for all Washingtonians. Now, the bridge we're standing in front of today is an excellent example of how these federal dollars can be put to work here in Washington. We have more than 100 bridges like this one across the state that need to be repainted. We have, again, another 100 or so bridges across the state that need their concrete decks rehabilitated or repaired. We have thousands of road and bridge projects across the state that need this funding and will benefit from these fundings. But importantly, it's not just the hard assets. We will not be able to get this work accomplished without one of our greatest assets, and that is our workforce. And before this event began today, Congresswoman DelBene and I were talking about the need for a strong and diverse workforce across Washington state. And so we at WashDOT, we're working hard on workforce development, inclusion, partnering with the big firms, the small firms. We are looking to do business with any and all firms in Washington state who can help us get this job done. One of the programs we're really excited about, the new Bridge Formula program. You've heard the representative discuss the millions of dollars that will be coming to Washington. We're really looking forward to putting that funding to work. We are looking forward to working with the governor's office and the state legislature as they appropriate these fundings. And thank you all for being here today. Next, it is my honor to introduce Mayor Boudreaux.
Thank you, Amy. Again, my name is Jill Boudreaux. I'm the mayor of the city of Mount Vernon. Strong infrastructure connects people to their community, to each other, and to their jobs. Strong roads, strong bridges, strong buildings, strong transit systems build and sustain communities. Our federal representatives that are here today are champions of that infrastructure, and they get it. And they've been able to be part of delivering funding that was going to help our community, Skagit County, and our cities for generations to come. Investing in infrastructure requires partnerships from all levels of government to work. So local governments, like cities, are responsible for planning and prioritizing investments that connect housing, jobs, infrastructure, and services. The federal government helps steer policies towards shared goals and provides significant capital, like this infrastructure bill, to make those necessary investments. Local governments can't do this type of infrastructure without federal support, and federal government investments work best when combined with strong local government partners. Mount Vernon is pleased to be a strong partner with a proven record of success in infrastructure. Our city is a national model for flood protection with our downtown flood protection project completed in 2018. And with the financial support from the state and federal partners, Mount Vernon is ready to put shovels in the ground and federal dollars to work for the benefit of our region and our economy. We'll provide some incredible community value through programs like the RAISE grant to fund our Mount Vernon Library Commons project, in part providing 75 electric vehicle charging between Vancouver, BC and Seattle along the Interstate 5 corridor. So I just can't thank our Congress partners enough and our state enough for knowing what investment looks like and helping us get there for the benefit of our entire state. And speaking of partners, it's my pleasure to introduce my partner to the City of Burlington, Mayor Steve Sexton.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you, Jill. Thanks to everybody for being here. I'm Steve Sexton, Mayor of Burlington. I'm usually pretty skeptical on federal spending on projects, as many of my colleagues know, but having been the mayor of Burlington on May 23rd, 2013, when that event happened, I had a firsthand view, as Jill did as well, of the interruption in the lives of our citizens, our businesses, commerce, not only in our cities, in our county, but our state, and the interruption to the main transportation corridor from our northernmost border to our southernmost border in this country. And that, it started out as an inconvenience and turned into a tragedy a few days later when Trooper O'Connell lost his life. But overall, this was a great warning for us at the state level, nationally as well. We came out of this event with no loss of life, which was just an amazing thing for me. My oldest daughter and I actually went across the bridge 4 minutes before it went in the water, and there was hundreds of us that had that story, I think. So when we look at things like this is government getting it right. When we can work with our federal partners, our states, our local, county, city officials, and get this right, this is exactly what we should be doing across this state, across this nation as well. It's one thing we hear the number of bridges that are on this list and that list, and the number of bridges that are failing. But when you see that bridge sitting in the bottom of the river, that's failing. That brings it home. And that was a scary event, and it's one that hopefully we can get some of these things fixed before it happens anywhere else in our area for sure. So I just want to say thank you to both of our Congress representatives, federal representatives across our state, and like I said, this is government getting it right. So thank you very much.
I think with that, we can open up for any questions that anyone might have.